At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and wouldn't you know it, just as I released my video talking about Generation 1 being buried and would be Generation 5 be next, we finally got some information. So I need to do a follow-up to that. And today to talk about that with me is my good friend, the proprietor of Fantastic Comics, Yule Carter. How you doing?
I'm wonderful.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. So we knew 5G was coming. You know, DC were planting the seeds. We know Wonder Woman was established as the first superhero in DC Comics in Wonder Woman 750. There were references to 5G in the Doomsday Clock number 12. Tom King and some other writers had even referenced 5G, which of course ended up becoming G5 because 5G was such a terrible name for a comic story. But then the driving force behind this big event that was supposed to be like an age of apocalypse, alternate future, Dan DiDio was fired. We had heard rumors that Scott Snyder had kind of went in and adjusted Generation 5 to kind of fit with Dark Knight's death metal, also fit in with the future of the DC universe as they had decided to go with it after Dan DiDio's departure. And then we didn't really hear nothing. We were sitting out here flapping in the wind, Yule. And now that we do know, it hasn't been dropped completely.
It's been very tumultuous, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. And,
a kind of a cluster ever since. And I think, what we've read, there's nothing different going on. It's still a cluster.
It is still a cluster. So it is not canceled outright. So we have confirmation of that. At least that's what the rumor article from Bleeding Cool says, which actually meshes up with a couple of other people I've talked to, including Perch, what they had heard that 5G was now going to be kind of like an imprint within ongoing titles that you'll be reading your Superman and all of a sudden you'll get a 5G logo or icon on a story and you'll know that this was a 5G story and not like within mainline continuity. I hope they're just released as Black Label. So we don't have to deal with the confusion, to be completely honest.
DC would have those, like in the 60s and whatnot, have those stories where they would say, hey, this is Superman in the far future, or this is a tale from the past that could have happened, maybe an imaginary tale. These could be maybe like hearkening back to the old DC stuff. Maybe they'll have like the checkerboard borders on their covers again. If they did something like that and you just kind of threw them in every now and again, kind of like, oh, this is an aside, maybe an Elseworlds with, but call it 5G or G5, whatever. Put it in the comic and, that would be okay, I guess, if they played it off that way. I had thought that this iteration of the characters were going to actually take over and actually replace all our regular superheroes that we have grown up loving all this time. And those were going to be the characters that would be stuck in like a Black Label situation. But yeah, I guess not now.
I don't think that was really ever the case. I don't think they were.
Well,
they were ever
that
really
was a lot of rumor, I should say.
I don't think Action Comics was going to be a part of 5G, and I certainly don't think Detective Comics was going to be a part of 5G. They were still going to be the mainline heroes, and obviously there would still be Black Label stories with those heroes in them. I think Bleeding Cool embellished that quite a bit, and they even mentioned that in the article. Let me find that quote where they mentioned that they were bullshitting on some of this. And this is what Bleeding Fool had to say regarding the event, and they're reporting on it. At which point, comic book distributor Diamond also confirmed this was a real thing, no longer the imagination of fertile Bleeding Cool writers. Even if some of this, goddamn, Rich Johnson can't write. Even if some of this were half truths and misinformation, it was going ahead. So they do admit that some of what they were reporting was misinformation and half truths in order to clickbait people going in there. Obviously, only the classic DC heroes being in Black Label, misinformation or half truth. the idea that Luke Fox was going to be taking over for Batman permanently, Jonathan Kent was going to be the new Superman permanently, Captain Cold's son was going to be the Flash. That was all temporary. It's supposed to be for this Generation 5 event, which was supposed to be like Age of Apocalypse.
Exactly what I was going to say.
And then, and when it ended, you were going to go back to the regular timeline.
Yeah, exactly. You hear that something. Oh, come on! Even when Superman died, if you really bought that one, you're a fool. We knew it wasn't going to stick around. It's the same thing with like a lot of stuff. Oh, I'll believe it. I'll believe it sticks when I come back 10 years from now. Then we'll see what's up. But as far as like, doing like an Age of Apocalypse thing, or you do have to have the company. See, if a company is telling a half truth or trying to lead you down an incorrect path, but still create hype, I don't really have as much a problem with that. But when it's an article of a news source, and they're doing that because clickbait, that's kind of BS.
I agree. That's why you can't really trust a lot of what Bleeding Cool. But like I said, I will admit in this one, I have confirmed at least some of these details. They actually match up with what I have been told. Mm-hmm. Now, what are your thoughts as a retailer that if you have your Batman line, James Tynion's white hot right now, people are ready to get back on board. Joker War is a big deal. And maybe when you wrap up Joker War, that 5G label shows up on Batman for 3 issues and they do a 5G story. That feels like a jumping off point for me. Do you think that's actually going to get people excited, or are people going to find it annoying?
You're making me find it very annoying right now. Gosh, I don't know. I think I think as far as the first ones, it will be okay. There won't be a problem. People that like Batman want to read Batman related stuff. We'll see. This is like Wendy.
Its own imprint is my point.
Yeah, you're probably right. But some of my favorite things that happen in comic books happen within like the numbering. So, like Batman Year One, when Mazzucchelli and Miller were doing that, and it was in the regular Batman issues. You could almost think like, because it wasn't it was in continuity. It wasn't like continuing the story going forward though, and it kind of was a G5, not really, but really. I'm just trying to.
DC Comics is Year One stories and Year Zero stories and Year.
I'm trying to. Well, it is now. Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to fight for the concept right now, and I'm really failing at it. But like these are the things I could maybe rationalize as a DC Comics fan. Something that they've done in the past that's kind of something similar to this, but overall it's not similar at all. And you're probably right. It should be its own imprint.
What I would say is similar during Tom King's Batman run, during the lead up to Batman 50 and the Wedding, Booster Gold shows up. He changes time. We go to an alternate future where Batman's parents never died. That was his gift to Bruce Wayne, was never killing his parents. His father in that timeline, I believe. No, it wasn't him. It was
convoluted is what it was.
Dick Grayson was the Batman when he arrived in that future, and then Dick Grayson, I believe, ends up killing Bruce's mother in front of him. I don't remember, but it changed the timeline. He fixed it, and they went back after 2 issues.
Yeah,
I think it was called The Gift.
Yeah,
and I thought that was kind of annoying, if not somewhat fun.
Yeah, so I don't know. There have been stalls within regular continuity comic books, and man, it depends on what the reader is willing to accept right now. There's not a whole lot of comic books coming out, so when this finally happens, maybe the time will, it'll be time for it to happen. I don't know. It's interesting in the very least.
Could be good. It's like maybe if Jeff Johns or Scott Snyder,
creative teams will definitely be important here.
Or Tom Taylor was writing the Superman 5G story, and people got a break from Bendis. Mm-hmm. I think that would be exciting because people want a reason to go in and read Superman right now, and I think Bendis is keeping them away from it. But otherwise, I really hope DC has these as their own imprint and they're just kind of separate. They're not released like in lieu of a regular edition of Batman or Green Lantern or Wonder Woman to where it breaks up the continuity. And hopefully by then there's some juice on these titles and maybe the sales are up.
What I would do is if when Shazam was being reintroduced to the New 52, Jeff Johns would have like a 5-issue or 5-page backup story in Justice League. So if you have your regular Batman story and then you have a G5 story, that would be fine. You know, oh, it's an extra $1. They love it charging an extra $1. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a reason to, you know, that would be okay. And like an 8-page story, just taking the whole book over though, it can be risky. I don't know. I think, like I said, for the first one, it'll probably be something, you know, there'll be collectors that want it for sure. We'll see if it lasts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it could.
So we did get some details on this, and it turns out that Brian Michael Bendis' Superman Authority story is linked in with 5G. That's what makes me think that this is going to be within like the Superman numbering. That these are gonna be issues of Superman. Brian Michael Bendis obviously is writing it. That was gonna be in there in this future. And Jonathan Kent, there's like a bottle city of Metropolis. And
yeah, it's like he's taken from that little Candor, you know, the bottle city of Candor. So what are we all just are we all just the 5Gs, the generations like little playthings now in a Metropolis and a jar and stuff like that? That's where our superheroes belong, just in a jar up on a shelf, and you know, we can have our little things there, but they're overseeing everything in the real world.
Yeah, there's some weird stuff. So Bruce revealing his identity was going to make Smallville into a tourist attraction, and then Jonathan Kent was going to set up the Fortress of Solitude there, and Superman was going to have the authority, like protecting Smallville because it became a tourist attraction. Just some stupid stuff, man. Like you're reading it, and like the idea of like Age of Apocalypse. I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. But the details that are involved in here aren't cool.
Yeah, I'm not so excited about it. Again, it's going to come down to creative teams. If I see a creative team that I like, and, you know, definitely art first, I think, is the important part here. Because, you know, you got to really get people to care. So costume design, action, just like visual representation is going to be super important, because if you don't connect on a visual level, there's nothing that's going to go on in that story that's going to make people care, I think. And then we have to have good writing also, or stories that are going to make me care, because you want me to get invested in. This is hubris here, is what I think we're gonna. So superhero comic books from companies that aren't Marvel and DC aren't usually that well received or that important. There have been good times when this has happened, but overall, when you think of alternative or indie comics, you're not thinking of capes and tights. So basically, DC is doing that very same thing, except they're kind of like hanging on to the Batman name. They're hanging on to Superman. But they're trying to get us in. They already tried it with the New Age of Heroes, and not one of those characters stuck. And now you're trying to do it again, just, you know, with these names associated to them. It has to have a very compelling story to go along with really, really great art, or else these are going to flop really quick, I think.
I was starting to get excited. Like I said, that Age of Apocalypse style event, but now that, you know, we're starting to get these details, I'm like, I don't know. Like if Age of Apocalypse, like somebody went back in time, changed something, they went back to the current timeline, it ruined everything. But now we're learning that Superman revealing his identity, you know, ruined things, and the death of Alfred was going to be playing in this, and events that were happening in Wonder Woman 750 had adjusted the timeline. So I'm actually. They might have sold it as an Age of Apocalypse style event, but it was playing within the continuity that was playing out currently that we're reading.
this is like a rudderless ship. It's just kind of just trying to exist and figure out what it is. And I mean, from all the all the lies, the misconceptions of what it was, and
The half-truths and misinformation.
that's right. That's it. The half truths and misinformation, and also, I mean, geez, just the free comic book day one that was going to relate to this. It got
Generation
put in,
1 that was released in Flash Forward.
so yeah, the trade paperback of Flash Forward. It's like they're hiding it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then it's something. So I don't know. This is a cluster, and why they keep going through with it, I don't. I mean, unless
They
it's
don't want
all
to cut their losses, I guess.
is it all already done? Because if that's the case, then it really doesn't matter. Just put it out.
Put it on
And if
digital.
it's not done, figure out what
Digital
you
first.
really. What was that?
Just put it out digital first. They're putting all that effort over there. Perfect place.
Yeah, probably digital first is the way to go.
Well, I think a lot of these issues are going to be playing into to what they have planned out. So if they don't reclude them in there, they might end up being behind schedule or something. But we do know that like Generation 2, 3, 4, like all those one shots that we were going to get that were kind of leading up to explain, how we got to Generation 5, those have all been scrapped.
This is all very confusing.
It is confusing. Like,
Well, what is this? It's so funny. All right, so DC has been doing everything they can to save comic books during this time, and this is like this is one of the craziest things because they've been doing so well. I know a lot of people hate them for leaving Diamond and all, but they're actually getting comics to stores. And they have new material coming out. And not only that, they have material that people want to read. And then there's this. It's very confusing.
that's the one of the bad things about Dan DiDio leaving is he was always out there as kind of the mouthpiece. He was always willing to go out there and speak. Like Jim Lee, he's not really that guy.
No, not
They
really.
need to anoint somebody as the front man that goes out and talks to the media and maybe get a hold of this and be like, listen, yes, Bleeding Cool is putting out some information that's correct, but here's the real story. This is what 5G is going to be about. We're not really going to talk about it right now because we do have Dark Knight's Death Metal. We got Joker War coming up. This is what to expect from Generation 5 when it happens, and it'll be coming around January, February. It's not set in stone yet.
Right.
But it's going to be an imprint, and this is how we're going to release it. But all this misinformation, it causes confusion. People are already mad about it, and now every time I make one of these videos, people are like, "Well, I'm glad it's gone." I was like, "I don't think it is gone." And the last one, I was like, "Well, maybe it is." They obviously buried the intro that was supposed to lead into the event, but now it is that really scaled down version. And God, I just hope they do not release it within like the Superman comic, where all of a sudden you're getting a three issue Generation 5 story, or in Batman you're getting a 3-issue Generation 5 story. Because that feels like a jumping off point. It feels annoying. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know. If it's got to be in backup. If it's in the main book, it's got to be a backup story.
Backup story,
or,
absolutely.
something like that. Something. I mean, hey, this is a selling point. I think that the first few will be something that people will want to, clamor for. A different take on Batman is interesting, at least for, again, those speculators and people that want to. I don't know, man. There's been a lot of people that have lapsed readers. If it brings them to come in and get something different, it might be okay. But it's just a gimmick. That's all it is a gimmick. Until they have to prove it.
Readers, I will be 100% on board, and I will think this. I don't care if I like it then. You can bring people back into the shops. Maybe they can get a hold of some more contemporary comics. Keep them come back in. Hopefully they find Daredevil or some of those really good comics that are going on. All worth it in my mind. I'll put that one out there. But this feels like this is going to annoy the people that are already there. Yeah.
Well, the people that are already there, unfortunately, fans, longtime fans, they if they're sticking out through all these times, they're going to probably stick it out for those times because
Hey, if they made it through King all the way to Tynion and they're making it through Bendis, they're probably going to make it past Generation 5. You got a point.
Yeah,
If you made it past Kelly Sue DeConnick's Aquaman, you made it past G. Willow Wilson's Wonder Woman, you're probably in for the long haul.
Exactly. But hey, we as longtime fans of anything, I'm sure in any genre or any medium, have probably seen where the person that's creating it or the company that's creating it is trying to get, or the musicians, they're trying to get more people listening or viewing or reading whatever they're doing. And in an effort to do that, we get dissed a lot of times. Being a longtime fan's tough. And that's why one of those things, people when you're there in the beginning and you see something blowing up, you realize, this might not be for me as much anymore. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what happens with comic books all the time.
I'm always rooting for the market. If Brian Michael Bendis, I do not enjoy his Superman, but it brought people back, and Superman sales were up at like 65, 70, 80,000 right now. I would still say I didn't like the comic, but whatever, keep him there. It's obviously working. But it's not working, and I do think it's the quality that has a problem with it now. Now, I hope we didn't confuse everybody with 5G, but what we think is happening is Generation 5 is still happening. All those one-shots, those are scrapped. If you want Generation 0, it is in the Flash Forward trade paperback. We are going to get Generation 5 stories. They're going to be like little imprints within the main continuity lines, and there's going to be a logo on them to show you that this is an alternate future of DC Comics that may happen.
Or to stay away from it.
or it might be a warning not to buy it. This is
no, buy it. Definitely buy it.
After reading this really bad Bleeding Cool article, mixed with a little bit of information from other sources, that's the best I can come up with. I hope I didn't confuse you too much, and I do appreciate you coming by and talking about this absolute shit show. I'm going to call it that now. It's certifiable shit show.
So that's the new name of the imprint.
Yes. DC shit show, aka Generation 5.
There you go.